Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at how we can find the square root of what we call perfect square numbers. And these terms will make a little bit more sense as we go through and do some examples. But to start off with, we need to remind ourselves a little bit about indices. So remember that something like 3 to the power of 2 is the same as 3 times 3, which is equal to 9. Okay, and remember, rather than saying to the power of 2, we can say squared. Okay, so if we're raising to the power of 2, we can say squared. And well, title of the video, square roots and square numbers. So these are going to have some sort of relation. And well, 3 squared here produces the number 9. Okay, so 9 is what we call a square number. Okay, and it's a square number because we have the number 3 being squared. Now, it's called a perfect square number as long as the number here, in this case the number 3, is a whole number. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 24, 25, 26. Okay, and in this case the number 3 is a nice whole number. So we call this number 9 a perfect square number. Let's have a look at some more perfect square numbers. So for example, 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared, 7 squared, 8 squared, 9 squared, 10 squared, 11 squared, and 12 squared. So all of our times tables. Well, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared 81, 10 squared is 100, 11 squared 121, and 12 squared 144. So all of these here, the number 1, 4, 9, all the way through on this right hand side, 49, all the way down to 144 are what we call perfect square numbers. Well, what is the square root then? The square root is often given by this little symbol like that, that's square root, and I've put it in brackets. So what does that say? That says that the square root of a square number, so the square root of 49, is equal to 7, because the square root of 49 is, well, what number is being squared? It's the 7 that's being squared. And say the square root of 100, what number's being squared to get to 100? It's the number 10. The square root of 36, what number's being squared to get to 36? It's the number 6. So that's finding the square roots of our perfect square numbers. And these perfect square numbers go on and on. So for 13, 14, 15, and forever and ever and ever. Okay? Now, the final part that we need to look at is guessing where a square root lies. So let's take a look at an example. So I'm going to bring these numbers down because this is sort of like our little cheat sheet. Let's say that we were going to do, we're trying to find out what the square root of, let's say, 63 is. Well, that's not a perfect square number. 63 isn't a perfect square number. It doesn't fall on the right-hand side here. It's not 1, 4, 9, 16. The closest we get is 64, but it's not quite there. But we know that 63 lies between the numbers 49 and 64, so it's going to be in here somewhere. So the square root of 63 is going to be bigger than the square root of 49, but it's going to be less than the square root of 64. And well, what does this tell us? It tells us that 7 is less than the square root of 63, but the number 8 is bigger than the square root of 63. So therefore, the square root of 63 lies between 7 and 8. And because it's so close to the number 8, so square root of 63 is so close to the square root of 64, it's probably going to lie pretty close to the number 8. So, and as a matter of fact, if you put it into your calculator, you get 7.94. So pretty close to that number 8. Let's look at one more example, and let's try and find the square root of 26. Well, 26 isn't a perfect square number. Okay, so what's it going to be close to? It's going to be in between this part here and this part here. So between 25 and 36. So we've got square root of 25 is less than the square root of 26, but that's less than the square root of 36. So it's between 5 and 6. And because it's so close to the 25 here at 5, would probably predict that it's going to be lower down towards this 5 end. And as a matter of fact, the answer for square root of 26 is actually 5.1.